Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. I'm speaking again with Susan Dugan about A Course in Miracles, as we pretty much always do. And today we thought we'd talk about lesson 155 in the workbook of the Course in Miracles, which is a really wonderful, inspiring, um, I think comforting actually lesson. And Susan and I were just talking, it's a very practical one too. It's I will step back and let him lead the way. And there's way too much to go over the whole thing in a short period of time, but we thought we'd touch on the highlights there. So anyway, thank you, Susan, as always, for joining me in these conversations. I always look forward to them, and I'll find them so helpful. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Um,
Any opening thoughts?
yeah, sure. Well, I've had some recent experiences that I don't know, maybe other people relate to this. It seems as though our world is presenting more and more rapid sorts of things to handle and do, and
Mhm.
we're all very busy, and then there's a lot of things that what I'm really just noticing is that there's so much change all the time. That there's always been that sense of the world being in flux but I think for some, maybe it's just that we have more ways of hearing about it, or we communicate much more, many effective ways of communicating, so we're getting more demands on our time and getting more information than we ever did, that make it a little bit trickier to navigate as a human. I think sometimes, even though they have advantages, they also have that, a lot of challenges that they bring in. I just was noticing some things in my kind of personal world that were coming up that I think I had to go back for my dad's. He had died in 2021 during the pandemic, before everybody was vaccinated, and so we didn't. I hadn't really seen my brothers or um, since right before the pandemic in 2019. So
Mhm.
I went back, what I was really the intention from the time that I was giving to that, because I was finding myself getting sort of nervous about the whole thing, and some of the emotions that might come up, and some of the, as families are, anything, some of the unresolved grievances or old stuff or whatever. And so I was really asking for help to make that, to use it as a forgiveness classroom. And one of the things that really means for me, and I think the course is asking us to do, is to really bring in that presence of that loving presence in our mind that is outside the dream. And even though we're not outside the dream, and we don't really share that experience necessarily of being outside the dream, but to ask for help to join with that healed awareness, and perception that we're all the same, that everybody's fighting a hard battle, that the what separates us and what the differences that we have are really insignificant. That the only real meaning is our common need to find our way home, and in that sense, everyone is a brother and sister on the way home, including our parents, our children, our literal siblings, our neighbors, our colleagues, the ones we love to hate, and the ones we believe can, offer us special love and can somehow fill the lack that we feel. So I was really, trying to give it a different purpose, which is what the course is saying, that we were asked to do through the course's version of forgiveness, which is quite different, to make the purpose of my relationships the healing of my mind, the healing of the idea of separation, the healing of the ego thought system, which is all about one or the other,
Mhm.
and trying to resolve the imaginary problem of the belief in separation by, um, constantly, sort of unconsciously differentiating myself as the less guilty one in whatever circle I'm in. or relationship I'm in. Not necessarily consciously. This is bringing the Course's process brings it to consciousness, but we kind of, that is our defense against the truth that preserves the idea of me being real and significant and different, and different in the sense that I truly exist at God's expense, which is the ego story, but it's not my fault. I have these others around me. Anyway, long story short of that is, I really had a sense there, which is very welcome, of having those same circumstances come up, because everybody's who they are, in terms of, we all have differences and preferences and personality traits and all of that, but that they didn't serve to, if there were times when I was tempted and felt the temptation to react defensively, but I felt very in touch with that presence. So it wasn't like I had to mechanically, as we often do, practice forgiveness, saying, I must be wrong about the cause of this. Step one, I'm not upset for the reason I think. Lesson 5, I could see peace instead of this. Lesson 34, meaning there is a part of me that, within me, a loving presence within my mind that sees this differently, that knows this is not what's really happening, and can help me. I didn't really have to go through that. It just kind of, happened. And I think that's the long-term benefit of this practice. It isn't the first time I've experienced that, but it was a lovely theater in which to experience that. And so I felt a lot of healing in that. And then there was another experience where we lost my daughter lost we all lost someone in our lives who was very, very close to us at one time. And a young man that we loved and greatly admired, and going through that as well. I went to the funeral for that last week, and was also feeling a lot of anxiety about that, because I didn't know, emotionally how I was so still feeling very, very identified with the parents, of course, and his family, and then just the personal loss that we were feeling. And so, but going through that again, making it the intention of really seeing our sameness and supporting each other, and the loving each other. So even in grieving as bodies, knowing that we are held in some way by that loving presence. That, to me, that's a way of stepping back and letting love lead the way, and that's exactly what happened. It was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. The grief was present, and so everybody was, acting what they were feeling, but beyond that, there was a sense of being very cradled. And I think it was felt by everyone, not to cancel out the grief or what we were feeling in any way, or diminish it in any way, but to, even the minister talked about, to really use it as a way to draw closer to others and to see our common humanity. And in what I was hearing was, sort of more the Course's, a message from our right-heeled mind. And so that was quite beautiful too. So I guess that's why I chose this lesson, and it helped me see in a new way that that's really what we're doing. And when we say we're making this a classroom of forgiveness, we're learning to let all of those scenes in the theater of our life kind of be there, but recede, and allow that awareness, that shelter that's offered to us, of the true strength of God within us all still, that worthiness of love that we've never compromised, and nothing could ever take away. We can't lose. We didn't gain or lose anything in our imaginary experiment in individuality. We continue to love, and even as bodies, I mean, we're not ready to give that up entirely. It's not like I felt like I was outside the dream again, or knew that it wasn't real, but there was a sense that there's something so much deeper that unites us and that delivers us from the craziness of what we've made up, and protects us from from our nightmares, I guess. So that's what I think what I was hoping is that we could sort of discuss overall what that theme means. What does it mean to step back and lead and let him lead the way? It doesn't mean, for me anyway, and I don't think what the Course is saying, it doesn't mean that that I'm going to be able to know where to park at the funeral, or
Serious level of confusion there,
yeah,
right?
I
Yeah.
also had trouble flying out. There something happened with the plane, and we were going to have to get another plane, and then it got fixed. So you still have to go through all those things, and I don't think of course, I was hoping that would turn out all right, but wanting to step back and let love lead the way meant in that particular situation with the something in form that help me to go through this safely, with let us all go through this safely and with kindness toward each other, and with what came up for me was with compassion for the flight attendants who have to do this every day, with the compassion for all the people that really, if they don't get someplace exactly on time, are stressing like crazy about what might happen with their jobs or their children, or whatever. So to just kind of see, yes, I mean, I have my own agenda, but we all have our agendas, and so how can we go through it peacefully? And those kinds of thoughts only come from stepping back, from getting our ego out of the way. Because if I'm front and center, which is having chosen the ego, then all I see is my inconvenience and my personal safety and my threat level, and I'm blinded to the opportunity that I have to really use this as another opportunity for healing, which is the only meaningful thing that we're doing here.
That's it. That's it. Yep. And a word that you used multiple times that we were commenting on before the recording, that I think is really epitomizes this lesson, is presence. When we feel that presence and that guidance, the Course calls the Holy Spirit, and by a number of other names, such as the appointed friend, which I really like, and certainly Jesus, as not the biblical version, but the Course's version, which really is outside of space and time, and not a historical figure, but a representative of that place in our mind that we took into the dream to trace our way back out of the dream. And that presence really, I can really relate to the story about your family gathering, and I had a similar experience last year when my mother passed away, and throughout the year, and it seems like more and more, not in any kind of linear fashion necessarily, but just sort of overall, it just seems like over the years, by giving myself to what's behind the words in the Course, it just seems like it's easier and easier to allow myself to not sabotage my peace, and to quickly look at the condemning thoughts and the separating thoughts and the judging thoughts, and say, that isn't working for me, and drop them more quickly. It doesn't mean I drop them altogether necessarily, but I'm willing to question them more readily, I think. And then the peace and the compassion that's available to me, to both experience myself and to share that presence. It's really, like you say, the presence of love to lead the way. That becomes easier and easier over time. Doesn't mean that the challenges in the world, like you were saying, go away. I was thinking about, before we started this conversation, that one of the quotes I find helpful is, I probably should have looked it up first, but it's something like, your task is not to be without problems, but to just, as far as in the world, but to learn to see them not as problems, but really opportunities to undo our belief in separation.
Yeah.
And that each seeming situation that would have been, traumatic in years past now becomes an opportunity to consider at least the idea that, what if this is really part of a classroom, and a very gentle mental
Yeah.
discipline is very patient and very forgiving and ultimately liberating, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, I think, I mean, it gives us those kinds of experiences where we really, find ourselves, um, not reacting or really letting it go very easily when it comes up, those reactions, and, are so strengthen are so motivating because
Mhm.
they really sometimes we have periods too where we're feeling like we just can't stop projecting, in a certain relationship or a certain situation. And we can sometimes forget that, we tend to when we're identified with the ego, make those, to go into sort of a spiral with that. And the ego's always telling us, you see, this course doesn't work. You're just never going to, how long have you been practicing this? Why are you still doing this? So it's really, that is, it's good to be able to try to remember these times as much
Mhm.
as we remember the others. There's probably a lot more of these times than we, are willing to acknowledge, certainly when we've chosen the ego. And it doesn't, this is about the development of trust, and that takes time. That's why we're in school. And so, not surprisingly, when I got back from my trip to see my brothers and my family up back east, I experienced quite a bit of a backlash with some things that were going on back here. Um, and so, but that's, I've certain, if you've been, for those of us that have been practicing a while, we shouldn't be too surprised by that. That's
Mhm.
exactly, the reason that we double down on our ego, tantrums, is because, the ego feels very, very threatened by our ability, by its inability to get us to react in situations that were always good ones, that were right at the top of our, what Ken Wapnick called our grab bag of guilt,
Mhm.
that were
Mhm.
some of our favorite toys to reach for to derail us, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so um, and so it's just, I think, becoming more comfortable with the journey, and then also, that intention that we have to reaffirm a lot of the time, again and again over the years, to become intimate with that presence. I'd really
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
to know that presence. I'd really like to know, I'd like to feel the confidence and trust that Jesus has in us. And he's telling us that all the time. I mean, he
Mhm.
just really is very, very optimistic with the way he speaks about how we can't fail, and how great his trust and love for us is. And even talks about, and I wish I had time to look some of these up, but his gratitude to us for our willingness to do our part, which is pretty, isn't a lot. It's really this realigning, questioning of what's really happening when I become distressed in any way. And then, that willingness again and again to say, I want to see differently. I want to align with the vision and the experience and awareness of love, true forgiveness and kindness. And um, and then, being patient and gentle enough to wait for that, and until our fear of receiving it subsides. And
Mhm. Mhm.
so, but making that the, as Ken also always said, the overriding purpose of my life, the most important thing.
Mhm.
It isn't, we don't want to bypass our life or relinquish our roles. Those are the curriculums that we use, um, but now they have a meaning. Now they're going somewhere, because
Mhm.
otherwise they're just going straight deeper into hell.
Yeah.
Creating the hell of the belief that we're here, which is the course's version of hell, because anything apart from imagining that we're apart from God and cutting ourselves off from receiving that love is torture. It's not loving.
Yeah. When you talk about purpose, I was kind of reflecting on, I was starting to write a little bit about, there was a quote in the course that I looked up that talks about our mad careers. And I was thinking about all the things that we do in the world that we think are, this is my job, and sometimes literally in terms of our, physical day-to-day professions and livelihood and so forth. But our mad careers are really everything that we do in the world that basically reinforces the special love hate cornucopia of things that seem to be the big deals du jour, and they shift around. And I'm kind of thinking about um, the wheel of misfortune that was used in one of the Foundation for A Course in Miracles workshops a few years ago, with all the different things in the world that sometimes it's a health issue, sometimes it's a financial issue, sometimes it's a relationship issue, political, it could be viral, it could be a cataclysmic geographic, the hurricanes, so many things that it's hard to keep, like you say, hard to keep up with all those things. And yet, there's a part of our mind that can watch those things, respond appropriately, and not be blindsided by it. And I think that's what we're sort of cultivating is that calm, that kind of not just merely, thinking that that presence is real, but also beginning to more and more identify with it by not identifying with the ego's insane and frenetic, random and chaotic approach to firefighting. And the Holy Spirit, I think, kindness teacher, appointed friend, that presence does seem like it more and more permeates our being and gives us an opportunity to notice the condemning thoughts and see them for what they are, and gently laugh, not in a derisive way, but just say, wow, there goes this Bruce character down that path again. Maybe I'll shorten up the time that I devote to that insane response or reaction, and and then it gets a little easier, I think, over time.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think we have a growing willingness. And yeah, we certainly have times where we still find it extremely difficult. And that's part of the process too, that the ego hangs in there, the guilt hangs in there till it's all gone, till the very end. But we are getting some very when we have identified with that love within us, we know that it's a love not of this world. We know that it's the quality of the experience is not something that is possible when when Ken said that there's no me in it. We know that that's the experience where my identity as Susan is blessedly not present I'm relieved of that burden for a little while, at least. And so we know that's very, very strengthening. And and sometimes we can have these days of that are really, really a different way of being in the world. And so, and more as we keep that helps strengthen our faith that we need to continue with this, that it's really it's healing us, our mind. And the course says that every time we're willing to do that, we're offering that same possibility. We're demonstrating to everybody we're involved with on a completely unspoken level, that they too can make that choice, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, but very often people will sort of join you there. You can feel that. And it doesn't even matter where it came, if the invitation came from them or the invitation came from you, that doesn't matter either. That's not even a question. You just sense that everyone is sort of in that. And if you're in it, you will sense that everyone's in it, because no one is opposing. You don't see any opposition. You only see that call for love if there's some resistance to that, and you know that one well, so only compassion, occurs to you, I think. So
Yeah, whether or not it seems to be accepted or rejected is immaterial, because
exactly.
the peace is no longer contingent on that, apparent acceptance or rejection. Yeah, I'm kind of reminded the Course really tells us, which seems like a stretch at times, that everyone always has already accepted that peace, but we're just not
Right.
aware of it. So
Right.
if I can remember that that's true for me and for everyone else, then I don't need to worry about whether or not, my contributions are being accepted, or whether I'm accepting someone else's contributions. It's like,
Mhm.
um, it's already a done deal, and I can afford to relax. And I think that's where the gentleness and the ease. And I was just thinking about that first paragraph. But how about if we just read one paragraph
Sure.
of that
Yeah.
lesson?
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
at least we'll cover one token per paragraph. Um, Lesson 155. I will step back and let him lead the way. And it begins with, there is a way of living in the world that is not here, although it seems to be. You do not change appearance, though you smile more frequently. Your forehead is serene, your eyes are quiet, and the ones who walk the world as you do recognize their own. Yet those who have not yet perceived the way will recognize you also, and believe that you are like them as you were before.
Mhm.
And that's just an example of how, like you were saying, we may or may not in any given moment be in touch with that guidance, but there's a part of us that's growing, that can never be severed. It can never be disconnected.
Mhm.
And then when we are recognizing it, we recognize it in everyone we meet.
And it's no big deal, there's no spiritual specialness in it.
No, none
It's
whatsoever.
just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
place of comfort
yeah.
that that we're experiencing, and thereby offering to anyone, that we
Hmm.
come in contact with. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's not only a hallmark of that thought system, the non-specialness, but it's an essential ingredient of it.
Yep.
The instant we try to make differences real, it's like, oh yeah, I've become, distracted by the form or the apparent inequities or whatever, and thud back to square
Right.
one again. But we've kind of greased the skids and macheted our way through the ego's jungle. I think somewhat that we can, you know, by practicing noticing when we're out of our right minds, I think it becomes a little quicker each time to retrace the steps back to peace, and
Yep.
follow that presence back. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, again, we may have times of resistance. We do have times of resistance, and I mean, in my experience, they're pretty hellish time, because
Sure. Sure.
I more so in some ways. I mean, my emotions sometimes seem more extreme than they were, but I think that, we really are more sensitive to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's painful. It's extremely painful.
Hmm.
But that motivates us too. So
Yeah.
to choose again.
I
Yep.
think we're just turning up the sensitivity on what was already
It's already
100%
there.
insane. That's one thing of the many things that Ken Wapnick has shared over the years that has really helped me, is the idea that the ego is always 100% insane. The Holy Spirit is always 100% sane.
Hmm.
And, there's never any decrease in intensity of those. And that's why, the first miracle principle, there's no order of difficulty. There's really no magnitude in terms of the craziness of the ego, or the gentleness and peacefulness of Holy Spirit.
Yeah. That
But
minor twinge of annoyance, I don't ever have those anymore. It just goes straight to like fury.
it's either
I'm just
global
like,
peace, or
peaceful.
or
That's
or
right.
or the
That's
red
right.
phone on the president's desk that
Yeah,
launches the
it's it's
warheads, right?
it's
Yeah.
really insane.
Yeah.
So, you really get to feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, so, but I think that that's what, I think, I was hoping that that's what we would emphasize today, is
Yeah.
just, what does it really mean in practice to do this? And, we're all learning together, but at least sharing some of our thoughts on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it is a simple choice, as the third
Yep.
paragraph says, and we just need to keep making it over and over again until it becomes
Yep.
second nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted, as we're wrapping up here, but to mention CDs that was fairly recently released by the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, a new, I mean, not new, but newly recorded workshop of Ken's, called "The Mind's the Thing," and it's available on audio. And I would highly, highly recommend it. It's very, very good and very, very helpful in explaining what is meant by, this journey from body back to mind. And there's some great questions and answers on it. It's really a fine workshop. So
I'll put a link to it in the write-up. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And just while we're on the subject of on the level of form, I always like to encourage people to check out your wonderful website at
Thank
fourreasonforgiveness.com.
you.
And I've also put things I find helpful about the course on acimblog.com. And we always appreciate your support. So
Yes, thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you. And thanks as always, Susan, for sharing another conversation. And I always find them helpful and good reminders to keep practicing. So
That's right.
uh,
And strengthen our own resolve. That's part of why we do it.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, have a great rest of your afternoon.
Likewise. And we'll talk again soon, I'm sure. Thanks a lot.